Murder in Studio One is the 23rd in a series of 26 stories written by Norman Corwin in 1941 for the Columbia Workshop. There's a lot of history here. Let's see. Columbia Workshop started in 1936 by Irving Reese, radio engineer who saw the potential of radio to create a unique narrative style, along with innovations in sound effects and microphone technology. He often invited artists to adapt existing material for the workshop, such as a two-part adaptation of Hamlet by Orson Welles. Rees was succeeded by William F. Robeson as director in 1938 and Norman Corwin in 1940. Norman Corwin was a writer, screenwriter, producer, essayist, and teacher, considered one of the most great innovative storytellers in radio and called America's poet laureate of radio. His topics varied widely from drama, comedy, satire, mystery, philosophy. One of the first producers to regularly use entertainment, even light entertainment, to tackle serious social issues. He influenced many writers like Rod Sterling, Ray Bradbury, Gene Roddenberry, Norman Lear. Corwin left the workshop just 1 month prior to the bombing of Pearl Harbor. Later that month, he created a program for the government to commemorate the 150th anniversary of the Bill of Rights called We Hold These Truths, narrated by Orson Welles. 60 million listeners made it one of the most famous shows ever produced on radio and received a Peabody Award for that. In 1942, Corwin and Edward R. Murrow combined to produce the show An American in England on CBS Radio. Corwin avoided interviewing government officials and choosing to focus on everyday people in England to see how they were affected by the war. Corwin's most famous work is On a Note of Triumph, a celebration of the Allied victory in Europe. He wrote a similar program, 14 August, which was broadcast on VJ Day. He wrote a number of motion picture screenplays, including Jane Wyman's The Blue Veil, and Kirk Douglas's Vincent van Gogh biopic, Lust for Life, which Corwin won an Oscar nomination for. In the 70s, Corwin produced a TV show called Norman Corwin Presents. Over the years, he published many books, including Trivializing America. Corwin returned to radio in the 1990s with a series of new programs written for NPR, with cast members such as William Shatner, Jack Lemmon, Charles Kuralt, and Martin Landau. Now, Norman Corwin was born in 1910, yet he died a mere 8 years ago in 2011 at the age of 101. This episode, Murder in Studio One, is the 23rd in a series called 26 by Corwin. It is a satire comedy set in New York City that references a specific sporting event between the Dodgers and the Yankees which happened that same year. And now, Kathy here, she's ready. All right. Murder in Studio One.
Now just calm down. Just take it easy. You act as though something terrible has happened.
It is terrible. This is awful. This is the worst thing to happen in radio.
Well, don't get excited about it. It's a mere trifle. Where's the body?
Right over here. Oh, poor Van Crimp.
How long has he been dead?
I don't know. Only yesterday.
What's the paper he's got in his hand?
Looks like a piece of script to me.
Well, let me read it. Columbia Workshop presents... What's a Columbia Workshop?
Oh, a bunch of fellas.
Columbia Workshop presents program number 2326 by Corwin. Who's Corwin?
Oh, he's a guy.
Well, let's see. Presents a new mystery melodrama entitled Murder in Studio One, written and directed by Norman Corwin, starring distinguished actress of stage, radio, and screen, Ruth Gordon, in the role of Cameo Klopf. Imagine Ruth Gordon as Cameo Klopf.
Who's Cameo Klopf?
That's me, you idiot. Haven't you heard of Inspector Cameo Klopf?
Well, no, you see, I'm just a maintenance man here in the studio building.
Maintenance man or no maintenance man, don't you realize I'm the expert who solved the Purple Opal murder, and the Lindsay Bargrove mystery, and the strange case of the green fedora, and the incident of the checkered pajamas?
Well, no, ma'am,
Well, I am, and to be perfectly frank, I shouldn't be fooling around with a small potato case like this.
I should say a very hot potato, ma'am, considering who Van Crimp was. Oh, poor Van Crimp.
Who was Van Crimp?
Why, the most popular radio announcer in the country.
He was. I'll make a note of that. Heaven's sakes, why isn't my secretary here to take notes? Where is everybody? Why am I always the first at the scene of a crime, even before the coroner? Hereafter, I'm going to take more time. It's undignified for a detective famous as I to show up before anybody else. That's not the way they do it in the movies.
I agree as how it isn't, but poor Van Crimp, he was just the nicest.
Oh, really? I just wanted to be left alone to finish my research on the lepidopterology of ancient Persia and play the horses. But no. Every fortnight or two, somebody turns up with a new mystery for me to unravel. It's ridiculous. I've solved enough mysteries to start a radio series called Ellery Klopf. Yeah, and cases of Philo, Crothers, Ziblo, Shapiro, Hoopkan, Moto, Gutza, Babbleby. They were dizzier than moths in a lighthouse before I got through with them. A good thing I just...
Hey, boss, I've been looking all over for you. Big murder case just broke.
Yeah, it's about time you showed up. This is Mr. Slope, works around here. This is Minnie, my secretary, never works around anywhere.
How do you do,
Hello,
ma'am?
Slop.
What's the big murder case you say just broke?
A guy named Van Crimp was found murdered in a radio station. They been calling you on the phone ever since.
You wouldn't mean the murder in Studio One, would you?
Yeah, that's it. How do you know?
What studio do you suppose this is?
Is this Studio One? The joke's on me. That's a hot one. Where's the stiff?
On the dead side of the studio, right here.
Dead side? That's a scream. Why do they call it the dead side?
Because sound is dead on that side, of course.
Make a note of that, Minnie.
Okie dokes. That ain't all that's dead on that side, huh? What a gag. I'll have to give it to Winchell.
Well, here's the body, ma'am. Oh, he was such a nice fellow, Van Wyck.
Well, so I can rush up here to tell you there's a murder in Studio One. The joke's on me. That's a laugh, all right.
Minnie, stop enjoying yourself long enough to find out what's delaying Lieutenant O'Hanrahan and the coroner. Ring up headquarters and ask them when they... never mind. They're here now.
Well, there's Cameo now. Must have arrived here before we did.
Elementary deduction, my dear Lieutenant O'Hanrahan.
Miss Klopp, this is Dr. Lionel Bumbridge, the coroner.
How do you do?
Miss Minerva Hammersmith, Miss Klopp's secretary.
Hiya, Doc.
Hi, how do you do?
Oh, and this is Gu Chong, everybody. He's a specialist who solved the Congressional Investigation Committee murder and the incident of the unmitigated bore.
How do you do?
How do you do?
Lieutenant, why did you call me in on this case if you got Mr. Gu Chong here? You auditioning detectives?
Why, no. Gu Chong is on the case as a consultant. Ain't that right, Gu?
I am. He who keeps moon from wolf is ready to catch luck, if ever the heavens do fall.
Should I make a note of that, Cameo?
Yeah, don't bother. Lieutenant, I'm resigning from the Van Crimp case, effective immediately.
He who resigns from case before investigation puts plow before oxen and claws where it does not itch.
What kind of double talk you call that?
That's strictly some Chinese humdrum.
Oh, please don't leave the case, Cameo. You don't want crime to triumph, do you?
Crime don't pay.
Oh, poor Van Crimp. Only last Monday.
All right. I'll stay, but it's against my principles.
Yeah, good. That's the stuff, Cameo. That's the spirit.
Yeah, well, let's get down to business. What's that piece of paper sticking out of Van Crimp's side pocket?
Oh, let's see. It's got typing on it.
It looks like a commercial announcement.
Well, let me see it, please. Don't forget to remember, insist on name Fudgy Cream for real, honest to goodness, creamy, delicious, awesome, tempting, tangy, help those, this and that, mellow with lusciously, it was just crunchy.
He was supposed to read that tonight at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, well, he's better off this way. Now, Dr. Bumbridge, you've been poking around here long enough. You've determined the cause of death?
Oddly enough, the victim was not killed violently. Very strange.
Yeah, it is strange.
The evidence points to strangulation, but there isn't a mark of any kind to indicate the manner of strangulation.
Minnie, make a note of that.
Okie doke.
I take it, Doctor, you've completed your examination?
Except for an autopsy.
You're then through for the present?
Yes, ma'am.
But you haven't used your stethoscope to examine the corpse, Dr. Bumbridge. Why is that?
Surely, Miss Klopf, you're joking.
Make a note of that, Minnie. I am not joking, Doctor.
But you know that the coroner never examines stethoscopically. When I arrive, it is not to examine a patient, but a corpse.
Don't hand me platitudes at a time like this, sir. Once again, I suggest you use your stethoscope.
This is preposterous.
Specifically in the area of the duodenum.
Absolute nonsense. The man is dead.
Why don't you do what you told you, joik?
Just leave this to me, Minnie. I'll take care of the smart repartee. You stick to your shorthand.
Okie doke. Just trying to help.
And besides, it's jerk, not joik.
Very well. If it will humor you, Miss Klopf, I will listen to his pulse and respiration, which ceased at least 2 hours ago.
Why, only yesterday, Van Krimp told me he was going to do the commercial for Miracle Beer. He says to me, let me tell
Well,
you...
Dr. Bumbridge, what do you hear?
Nothing.
Nothing?
No, nothing.
Yeah, well, then why are you so pale?
I'm not well, I guess.
Yeah, give me that stethoscope. I'll listen myself. Just as I thought. Lieutenant, listen to this.
No, I can't believe it.
Well, what is it? Don't keep us on tenterhooks.
Why? Why, it's a quartet. They're singing. Oh, they're singing music.
Oh, what kind of music?
The Boogly Woogly Piggy.
Are they swinging it?
Would the Honorable Mr. Chong care to listen?
Thank you so much. Huh. Pretty. He who hear music out of wood should lock barn door at the barn is stolen.
Are you kidding? Perhaps the estimable Mr. Chong can offer a theory at this point.
Guchong jump to no hasty conclusions. He who jump before he leap, big boost without catching bird.
Give over, Goo. Let me listen.
Do you have an explanation for this cameo?
Simple.
Now they're singing Ida. Ida, sweet as apple pie.
Come over here, Minnie. Now, it's obvious Van Krimp was murdered by the administration of a dose of the deadly poison Insidium.
Yes, but how can you tell without an autopsy?
I'm coming to that, Dr. Bumbridge. And when I get there, you'll do well to have an explanation for your strange report of not hearing anything.
But
Now, just listen. Insidium is newly discovered poison, the effect of which is to choke off the oxygen supply in the blood while at the same time producing a mood of profound cynicism in the victim.
Cynicism?
Yeah. You'll please observe he died with a sneer on his face.
Why, so he did.
But how does this explain the music coming from the duodenum?
Simple. Insidium is a radioactive substance. It gathers in the duodenum and sets up a sort of receiving station for radio waves and other electrical impulses. Acts like a crystal set, you might say.
She knows her stuff, don't she, boys?
Miss Clough, this poison you speak of is unknown to medical science. Now, how do you
Quite
know
so,
what-
Doctor. Because there are only 8 persons in this country who studied it, and I am one of them. I just finished writing a monograph on the subject.
Cameo, I gotta hand it to you. You solved the mystery.
Yeah, now all we have to do is find the murderer.
Yeah, you certainly... What's that?
In the meantime, Lieutenant, I suggest you place Dr. Bumbridge under arrest for suspicious conduct.
Oh, now, wait a minute.
Poor Van Crimp.
And also detain Mr. Slope, who's been mourning poor Van Crimp just a little too hard to suit me.
Me too.
But I'm only the studio maintenance man. I was only...
Also, any other who's professed to have known Van Crimp intimately.
Hello, everybody. Am I in the right studio? Is this Studio One?
Yeah, well, what do you want here?
Why, I have an appointment to see Van Crimp, the announcer, and by golly, I'm just on time, too.
What's your name?
You mean to say you don't know me? My name is Elwin Rappel, tops and tenors, singing nightly at Earl's Place, Route 22, where frolics begin, no cover, no min. And I got a lot of very flashy and dramatic routines. Young and sober will go anywhere. Yuck, 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 yuck.
Yeah, well, where do you think you're going now?
Well, that's a good question if you ask me. I am going places. But probably what you mean is getting down to seriousness. Where am I going now?
Right out on your ear.
Well, as a matter of fact, Van Crimp is a great big, a big booster of mine and really a happy doodle dandy kind of a chap.
That's what he's saying.
He came out to Earl's Place to get some soft-shell crabs that they feature next along to my singing, and he told me not to fail when I was in town next time to drop in on him, so here I am.
You're a good friend of Van Crimp's, are you?
Am I a good friend of his? Why, say, I'd give him a shirt right off my back. Why, he's way up there with the best of them. He's right at the top, what I call a crackerjack boy. Why, there's nobody like him.
You mean, he's out of this world?
Oh, right as rain.
You, recognize who was laying on the floor?
Oh, why, absolutely absative. Good old man, Crimp. Tough break. By the way, speaking of breaks, tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna give you folks in the studio a real break. One of the best breaks you ever had. I see you folks need a little cheering, and I'm the guy to do it. Always glad to be of service to my fellow man with a smile. Oh, I tell you folks, a smile is a great thing to remember. You remember that old song? A smile take you well.
All right, do your smiling outside. Come on, let's get you lost,
Well,
huh?
now, wait a minute, folks. You're making a big mistake. Madam, you've probably got one good ear.
Yeah, and you're a pain in it. Go on home now.
Well, I can tell you I have a dandy here. Now get the boy and girl angle of this song. All right, here we go, and glad to do it, too. It was a call, behold, and never come.
All right, come on, you big yapper, and all my years on the force, I swear I've never heard such a thing.
Well, all right, now we're rid of him. And I suggest we all go about our business. There's a number of people I want to see.
Noted.
In the meantime, I suggest Van Crimp be given a decent autopsy and burial so he'll stop receiving Boogly Woogly Piggy and Ida and other programs on the same wavelength.
Well, boss, here's the evidence you wanted.
Let's see. Now, there were 3 different programs either rehearsing or broadcasting while Van Crimp was in Studio One on the afternoon of the 7th.
The Science Talk by Professor Worthington Fromick.
The Adventures of Zazur the Zealous.
And the Rowdy Dowdy Rhythm Girls.
Yeah, and each must be investigated. In addition, I must see the sponsor of Van Crimp's Snap and Zip variety show, Mr. Plimsoll. I understand he quarreled with Van Crimp the day before he was murdered.
Sure, Plimsoll, his wife died of ptomaine poisoning last year.
Very curious. Put that down, too. Now, first we must see Professor Fromick.
But I tell you, Miss Clough, I only met the man once.
And that was at a poker game?
Why, yes, to be sure. It was a poker game at his home in Brooklyn.
Brooklyn, that's where I live. The land of the free, the home of the Dodgers. Wait until you see our boys next year.
You lost heavily to Van Crimp that night.
Yes, that's true.
And you promised to pay up before November 1st.
Yes,
You also lost a telephone bet on the World Series to him.
yes.
Now, Professor Fromick, you were a scientist and you lecture on the radio.
Yes.
You also happen to be one of the 8 people in this country who knows the secret of Insidium.
Well, yes, yes, but I assure
That
you
professor
that I...
will be all for the moment.
Yes, I'm the head writer of the adventures of Zaza the Zealous. So what?
Well, Miss Fotheringale, your stories are very imaginative in a macabre sort of way, ain't they?
Yes, they are. So what?
Van Crimp once told you publicly that he thought your stories stank.
So what?
And you replied he'd feel sorry one day for what he said. You also called him an overbearing snob in a stuffed shirt and an exhibitionist who ought to be put out of circulation.
If he was, so what?
And you accused him of standing around waiting for people to ask for his autograph.
Well, he'd rather sign his autographs in ink. So what?
That's why I'm asking you.
You aren't asking.
Well, that's what I intend to do.
Listen here, Klopp. I'm sure I'll sue you for disturbing my peace of mind. I'm a busy woman, and I'll sue you too, you little twerp, for sitting there taking notes of everything I say. Do you hear me?
Yeah? So what?
Yes, I was Van Crimp's girl.
And you sing on the Rowdy Dowdy Rhythm Girls program, Miss Pinkney?
Yes, I do.
You saw him in the studio the day of the...
No, I didn't see him, I tell you. I didn't.
She says she didn't.
But you saw him the night before.
Yes, we had a party. I was at his home. He was very happy about winning a bet that day. Later, he and I went down to Kelly's Tavern for a drink. He was very boisterous, and I quarreled with him.
Ah, you quarreled with him.
No, it wasn't what you suspect. It was only
Was he sober?
Yes, he never drank.
That's all for now, sister. What about that, Mr. Plimsoll?
Now, I'm surprised that you could ask such a question, Miss Clough. I have always enjoyed the most cordial relationship with my employees and all those members of my wonderful little family who represent society's selected snaps and zips. manufacturing company on air. And that includes good old Van Crimp, too. May he rest in peace for life.
But you had sharp words with him on the day
Oh, I am always surprising my employees with little surprises. Now you, take this here. The folks are expecting a bonus this year, but I have got something to up my sleeve far better than a bonus. And when they get in step with his thing, they are going to be pepped up good and plenty over. It's what we call the Friendly Christmas Plan. And it's very simple. All an employee has to do is save a slip that he has issued. That is, of course, providing that he has been with the firm for a minimum of 19 years. And if the slips are okayed by the foreman and the division superintendent, they are then put through the verifier and checked by any competent notary public. Then they are issued to the board, and the employee may simply await his turn. This is a matter of, I would say, about 10 days or so.
Go on. This is positively spine-chilling.
Yes, I'm glad you approve of it. And then he receives his application rank. By the way, there's just one thing to remember here, Miss Klops. You might make a mental note of it. It's very important, the letters, they must be sure to sign their name on both sides. And then it's simply a matter of a thorough medical examination, and if the employee passes, he's entitled to A, a choice of a half day off, or B, 0.5% discount on articles purchased at the factory commissary. It may seem a little radical to the more conservative businessmen, but I have found it always pays to search for methods of establishing a formal relationship between myself and my employees.
There are worse crimes than murder. Everybody here, Minnie?
All the suspects is inside, including Lieutenant O'Hanrahan and the district attorney, if you want to call them suspects.
Stranger things have happened.
And you also got Mr. Elwin Rappel. What a smack. He's like a cartoon in the New Yorker. He's like that rare etching in Donaire.
Very well. And never mind the cultural illusions. Let's go in and clear up this mystery.
Okay, boss. Just this way.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry to upset your plans for the evening, but there is a little matter of a murder to clear up, and then you can all go home. All but one, because the murderer is in this room.
Stop trembling, Mr. Plimsoll. You make the rest of the guests nervous.
Why? I'm afraid I swallowed my cigar. That's all.
That's okay. Them ashes is good for your teeth.
If you don't mind, Miss Hammersmith, I'll conduct this investigation.
Okie doke, just trying to help.
If I could be of any help, I'd be mighty glad to do it, Now, for instance, I have another song here. I have the right to...
Thank you, no. Just sit quiet and continue to pick your teeth. Now, you, Mr. Slope, you looked upon Van Crimp almost as a son, didn't you?
I loved the boy. Whenever he was in trouble,
You know, he had a habit of touching the point of a pencil to his tongue when writing.
Yes, I often urged him to correct that habit. I told him it was unhygienic.
It certainly was. It may or may not come as a surprise to you to learn that Van Crimp died as a result of touching his tongue to a pencil that had been dipped in insidium.
Why,
Yes, well, now maybe you're right. Now, Miss Pinkney?
No, I tell you, I didn't have anything to do with it.
Take it easy, Cookie. All she said was now Miss Stinkney.
Before Van Crimp went upstairs to Studio One, he was seen signing an autograph for a lot of girls in the lobby of the station.
Yes.
And
he
you were
was.
looking on very jealously.
I was furious with him. He was flirting with the girls.
He sure was. A mile a minute.
You, Miss Pinkney, already angry with him because of his behavior at Kelly's Tavern in Brooklyn the night before, you turned on your heel and stomped out.
She turned on her heel, all right.
No editorial comments, please. But that's true what I said, Miss Pinkney?
Yes.
Very well. Now I am ready to reveal the murderer. Take notes on everything I say, Minia.
Okie doke.
Okay. The identity of the murderer is Cornelius Van Crimp, of Cornelius Van Crimp, is Minerva Hammersmith.
Are you kidding?
Minnie, a little while ago when I remarked to Miss Pinkney that Van Crimp was flirting with autograph seekers on the day of his death, you remarked that he was.
To coin a phrase, so what?
So what were you doing there?
Observing how the other halves live.
Yeah, I thought so. It was you that I dictated my monograph on Insidium. Therefore, you knew the properties of the poison.
Stick to your properties as far as I'm concerned.
And you let slip the opinion that Van Crimp was a heel.
Check.
He lived in Brooklyn, where he lived all his life, and it's known he rooted for the Yankees in the recent World Series, as witness his argument with Plimsoll and his wager with Frommick.
Go on, you're getting hot.
Van Crimp celebrated on the night of October 6 at Kelly's Tavern. He was delighted because that afternoon the Dodgers had lost to the Yankees when their catcher dropped a third strike on what should have been the last play of the game.
Well, go on. This is strangely fascinated.
Yeah, you were there at the tavern that night.
How do you know that?
Well, it was your only night off in a month.
You're telling me.
Next day, you showed up for work with a new style matchbook from the tavern. You, a loyal Dodger fan, were infuriated because Van Crimp, also a native of Brooklyn, had turned traitor to the team. So next day, you took...
This has gone far enough. Yes, I murdered Van Crimp. I picked up Frommick's pencil, which he left in the restaurant, and I dipped it in a jigger of Insidium, and then asked Van Crimp for his autograph, and he put it to his tongue, as I'd seen him do once.
You did.
Yeah, I murdered him, and I would do it again, too.
You mean if you meet Van Crimp in some other life?
Anytime, anywhere, including the Bronx.
Minnie, why did you do this terrible thing?
Well, boss, I don't mind a Brooklyn citizen rooting for the Yankees. That's bad enough. But I say, live and let live. That's my motto.
Yeah, with one notable exception.
But insults. Insults is another thing. You want to know what Van Crimp said to me the night at that tavern? He said, "Them Dodgers are bush leaguers with illusion of grandeur." Yeah, he did. And he says, may they go back to the second division where they belong and never rear their ugly heads again. And he says, now get this, may all of their children drop third strikes.
Oh, Minnie, if you only told me.
Well, boss, that's when my gorge begun to rise. He says this also. He says the only way to explain the Dodgers winning the pennant this year is sunspots. Sunspots. And him, a resident of Brooklyn, and then he says it's another 21 years before Brooklyn finishes in the first division, which will be that'll be too soon for me to say, curse them bums, he said. They never was no good and they never will be. You wouldn't believe it, but that's what he says.
Oh, the man was a monster.
Well, boss, I knew then that this Van Crimp was a traitor to this country and to mankind. I knew then he had to go. It was a far, far better thing I'd done for Brooklyn.
Oh, Minnie, I understand and I sympathize. Believe me, it is with reluctance and a heavy heart I turn you over to the district attorney and the grand jury, but I saw my duty and I done it.
Okay, boss, I understand. No hard feelings. I guess nobody can pull off the perfect crime, but I come darn near close to it.
Yeah, and I feel certain that no jury in the world will convict you, except possibly in St. Louis, which fortunately has no jurisdiction in this case. Officer O'Hanrahan, the prisoner is yours.
I am honored to take so distinguished a prisoner into my custody.
Thanks, Flatfoot. Well, things is gonna be different next year. You wait and see.
Yeah, Minnie. Yeah. Things is gonna be different next year.
The Columbia Workshop presentation of Murder in Studio One, written and directed by Norman Corwin as program number 23 in the cycle of 26 by Corwin, and starring Ruth Gordon, distinguished actress of radio, stage, and screen, in the role of Camille Klompf. The role of Minerva Hammersmith, the Brooklyn Patriot, was played by Minerva Pius. The characters of Ellen Rappel and Mr. Plimsoll were created and performed by Edward Mayhoff. Others in the cast were Alan Drake as Slope, Kenneth Delmar as Dr. Bumbridge, Frank Lovejoy as Lieutenant O'Hanrahan, Peter Gu Chong as Gu Chong, Hester Sundergaard as Miss Fotheringale, Anne Shepard as Miss Pinkney, and Norman Obler as Professor Frummick. Music was arranged and conducted by Alexander Semler. The vocalists were the Symphonettes and the Four Clubsmen, McDonald 9 engineer. Columbia Workshop will return next week for the same time for program number 24 of 26 by Corwin. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System. Okay. What a gem that was. Okay. Let's see here. Stand by, everybody. You can clap to fill time here. That's cool. All right. All righty. The role of Inspector Camille Klopp was just assigned to Kathy Juarez an hour and a half ago. So, thank you, Kathy. Woo. The mournful Mr. Slope was also meant for Jay Summerfield, who took ill today. So it was played by me, Marty McNulty. The Dodger superfan and murderous secretary, Minnie, was played by Allison Byhan. The reliable Lieutenant O'Hanrahan was played by the equally reliable John Byhan. The philosophical detective Gu Chong was played by me, Marty McNulty, and I also do the music and sound effects. All right. The button-down Dr. Bumbridge was played by the non-bumbling Herm Thompson. Let's see. The inexplicable Elwin Rappel was brought to life by Jacob Palka. Oh, Herb Thompson also stood in and did Professor Frummick. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yep. And Mad Miss Fotheringale was played by Donna Ainsmeyer. The damsel Miss Pinkney was played by Sue Godzinski. And the self-impressed Mr. Plimsoll was played by our humble Andre Dixon. Now, our man Tom Duggan couldn't make it this month either, but he's the director for next month, so he sent me the following information about next month. We're going to present The Crime Club, a curious library of crime stories tended by the mysterious fellow known only as the librarian. The name of the story is The Topaz Flower. It's kind of nice. The second offering is another story of the great Gildersleeve. The name of the story is Gildy's New Secretary. Sure to entertain. Be sure to be here on Friday, February 22nd at 7:30 sharp right here in the Riverside Township Hall Auditorium. Hope to see you there. All right.